throughout my entire childhood, I didn't know this, but I'm on the autistic scale, specifically on the Asperger side of things. I didn't actually come to that realization or diagnosis until much later in life. My biggest limitation is I have no idea what people are feeling. I didn't have the easiest childhood. I saw Tom Cruise, Top Gun in third grade, and I was going to be a fighter pilot seventh or eighth grade. I found out about the SEALs through a book called The Men with Green Faces. By the end of the book, I was sure that fighter pilots were pansies and I needed to be a Navy SEAL. I would have definitely been voted least likely to be a Navy SEAL out of high school. I went to the Naval Academy and grew and competed for a SEAL billet and got it. My job was to go have a gunfight on the world's largest gas station that was rigged with explosives. This gas station is bigger than a strip mall. It was 12 football fields long. The expected success rate was 80%. Oh, that's pretty good. But then you have to think about, well, what does it mean if we're not successful? Well, it means that we've created the world's largest environmental disaster. They were expecting that they were going to injure or kill 50% of our forces.
It's like a constant battle that requires work.
I'm on the same journey. I'm not a guru. I haven't healed. I'm not fixed. I've just figured out how to explain it enough to shortcut the path of bringing stuff from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind. If you don't want to struggle on your own, try and figure this out. I'm there for you because it allows me to live my purpose.
Today's conversation is one of the most powerful we've ever had. Our guest is Larry Yatch, a former U.S. Navy SEAL officer, Naval Academy graduate, entrepreneur, and one of the most honest voices you'll hear on trauma, leadership, and human performance. Larry grew up on the edge of East Liberty in Pittsburgh, a rough place in the late 70s and early 80s, feeling different, isolated, and misunderstood. What he didn't know until decades later was that he's on the autism spectrum. What he did know was that he didn't think like everyone else, and that difference would eventually lead him to the SEAL teams. From an inspirational third grade viewing of Top Gun, to the Naval Academy, to SEAL Team 3, Larry found himself leading men into combat, including the opening night of the Iraq War, where the projected mission success rate was 80% and the expected casualty rate for his team was 50%. Today, Larry talks openly about trauma, not as weakness, but as both superpower and kryptonite, about leadership under impossible pressure, about disassociation, survival, entrepreneurship, and the moment he stopped living as a victim and chose to become the author of his life. This is a conversation about truth, awareness, and what happens when you finally walk through the door. This is No Surrender. Let's get into it.
This episode is brought to you by our partners over at Don't Trade It In. It's the best and fastest way to get top dollar for your car from the comfort of your home. Please visit don'ttradeitin.com today.
Larry Yatch, welcome to the show.
Justin, it's awesome to be here. Looking forward to this.
Great. Yeah, it's been a while coming here. I think I mentioned to you previously, Mark Devine said you'd be a great guest for our show and our mission. So yeah, it's going to be fun. To kick things off, if you could just tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what your childhood was like, and what ultimately led you to the Naval Academy and the SEAL teams.
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the city. We were on the outskirts of East Liberty. So East Liberty, back when I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, was not a very nice place to be. We were right on the edge of that, which I know from our conversations before, we have some similar experiences with not the nicest people in our childhood. So maybe we hit into that later. But I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I think the biggest piece of my childhood has bearing into the conversations that we'll have is that throughout my entire childhood, I didn't know this, but I'm on the autistic scale, specifically on the Asperger side of things. And I didn't actually come to that realization or diagnosis until much later in life, like about 6-7 years ago. And in understanding that, and both the gifts and the limitations of autism, my childhood makes a lot more sense. And I guess one of the biggest pieces to my childhood is due to the autism, I don't think like a normal person. And my biggest limitation is I have no idea what people are feeling, which generally led to an environment of being in the city of Pittsburgh, being a weird kid. And if it had ball or a team, I was useless at it, meant that I didn't have the easiest childhood. And ultimately, I think that's what led to the SEALs. But my path to the SEALs and the Naval Academy was through Tom Cruise and Top Gun. Saw Tom Cruise, Top Gun in third grade, and I was set. Like I was going to be a fighter pilot. The best pilots were in the Navy. The best Navy pilots come from the Naval Academy. So by end of third grade, that was it. Like I was set, and I started on that path. And then about what would have been about seventh or eighth grade, I found out about the SEALs through a book called The Men with Green Faces. And by the end of the book, I was sure that fighter pilots were pansies and I needed to be a Navy SEAL. The one challenge with that was I would have definitely been voted least likely to be a Navy SEAL out of high school. I'm 2'10" now, 6'3". Like I look like a SEAL now, but I was a tiny kid, skinny. Like I said, if at a baller team, I was useless. It was definitely, no one would have guessed that I would have turned out the way I did. So I didn't tell anyone. I went to the Naval Academy and grew and competed for a SEAL billet and got it. And so that was it.
Wow, wow. So that sounds like the way you told the story, like it wasn't too difficult on the one hand. On the other hand, just getting into the Naval Academy alone is hard. And then once you're there, like like I went to high school with a kid that I don't even know if he made it one semester
Yeah.
before he left. So was it you mentioned also you mentioned the autism, Asperger's,
Yep.
which ironically Elon Musk is falls into that category
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And I'm not sure when he was diagnosed, but you said 6 or 7 years ago.
Yep.
If you don't mind me asking, I know I started down one path there, but as far as the Asperger's goes, how was it until just 6 or 7 years ago that it was discovered?
Um, I think by the nature of being so different, uh, I learned that in order to not get negative attention, I had to figure out how people worked and act like that. And so they call that masking, right? So um, luckily, I don't fall on the dysfunctional scale of autism, right? I'm in a very high functioning side. And so I used my extreme analytical ability, which is the gift of autism, right? The gift that I got is this unbelievable logic and unbelievable ability to both analyze and distill complex things. And so for me, I looked at humans as a engineering project to figure out what are they doing and how do they work and how can I act in a way that won't cause conflict, strife, getting picked on, not fitting in. And that's also why I think I did so well in what is strange environments, right? Like if you were to take all the kids at the Naval Academy, you're going to have a higher rate of autistic kids there than anywhere else, in a normal school. And then in the SEALs, it's the same thing, right? They're just, you can't be neurotypical and be a Navy SEAL. It's not possible. And so as I continued into these different environments, I started to be around more of my people. And at this point, I'd also learned how to mask my real self. And ultimately, it led to a lot of my negative self view because I always viewed a world that something's wrong with me. And that fundamental belief that something's wrong with me by being autistic in a neurotypical world has led to a lot of my challenges in my life, my healing. And as I started to heal, that's when I started to accept my differences. And when a number of doctors said you're most likely on the autistic spectrum, my immediate response was no, I don't want to be labeled as broken. But then when I started to research it, and the real diagnosis, this is the funniest part, is my oldest son, who's now 11, at about 3 or 4, a speech therapist said, I believe he's on the autistic scale. And I was like, no, he isn't. He's super normal. And so I went to prove him wrong. And I got all this stuff to prove him wrong. And as I'm reading, I'm like, check, check, check. I'm like, uh-oh, this is looking a lot like Larry. And so that was really what opened the door was my son's diagnosis.
Wow, wow. So then at that point, did you take any tests, or were you just like, I'm not only do I not necessarily disagree with the doctors about my son, I know enough now about autism and Asperger's to know that I am.
Yeah,
I
and
would,
it was because the only reason to go get diagnosed from the doctor is if you need some sort of intervention. I didn't need an intervention. Um, so I just took a number of tests and I always score like 90% on them. Like I was kind of the highest grades I ever got was, on the autism test. And so it became very obvious that this is a big part of my brain, the way it works. And I would say the biggest benefit to that is it allowed me to understand myself so much better and really give myself a lot of grace, like take care of myself better, as opposed to trying to shove a square peg into a round hole.
gotcha. So yeah, and then the first part of the question was the path to the Naval Academy. Did you, due to your undiagnosed Asperger's at the time, just naturally do real well in school, or how did you end up at the Naval Academy?
I would say it's twofold. I did well in school, but I always had to work hard based on the fact that uh, the my intelligence isn't school based. What I mean by that is like where I excel is not going to show up in middle school, grade school, high school. So for me to excel, which by having the goal at third grade at 9 years old, I think by 10, I got a book that said it was for applicants of the Naval Academy. And I just studied it, saw the list of stuff I needed to do, and started working on it. Like one of my gifts is once I set a goal or objective, like I don't know how to quit, right? I don't know how to stop. And so for me, it was very easy. Like, oh, this is math. Like you got to do these things. I'm going to start doing these things now. And so for me, it wasn't easy, but it was clear. Like the path was very clear. And I did all of the things that you were supposed to do and was able to excel enough to get in. And it is like the year I got in, they rank school rankings of difficulty to get in. And we were right under Harvard Law School. It's like the third thing because for the Naval Academy, you're not, unlike Harvard, you're not just competing against intelligence because they're looking for naval officers. They're not looking for just smart kids. And so not only do you have to have good grades, but you have to do well at sports. You have to have extracurricular activities. You have to show leadership. And so you're competing against whole people. You're not just competing against, did my SAT score get higher than yours?
Yeah, definitely. It was a similar, ironically, situation for me when I went to business school at the University of Wisconsin. I went up there initially to hopefully play football, and my injuries prevented me. And then I heard all these things about this phenomenal business school and the Harvard of the Midwest and this and
In
that.
in the middle of nowhere. Like I spent 9 years in Minnesota and Minneapolis. So yeah.
Yeah, and sure enough, man, I had to relearn how to study.
Yep.
I mean, just to get into the university itself. And then they said something similar. At the time, the University of Wisconsin School of Business had produced more Fortune 500 CEOs than Harvard.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and I was like, holy cow, like this is serious, but like you, I'm the same way. I don't give up almost to a fault. Like,
Oh, me. For me, it's not even, I can't say almost to a fault, to a fault. Like I've created significant suffering in my life simply because I equated quitting and not finishing as the same thing. And so no matter what, if I started something, I'm going to finish it. Like to the point of movies. Like if I start a movie and it sucks, I'm going to watch it to the end. If I start a book and hate it by the third page, I'm going to finish it. That led into marriages that, I shouldn't have dated the person, much less get married to them. And I just didn't know how to quit.
yeah. Wow. So, and that's, it's like as a species, where you and I are here right now because our ancestors had a lot of that, because the world we live in today, you know, in this country at least, we're going to eat every day if we want to eat every day. Whereas at some point in the past, in many prior generations, our bloodlines had to kill to eat, and they had to kill to protect their women on a regular basis. I know you've obviously as a Navy SEAL and with your history, you've had to do a lot of things that 99.9% of Americans don't have to do, probably. But yeah, it's and that's ironically, I keep saying the word ironically because like no surrender exists because we want to help people. And I believe, along with a lot of other people, that one of the biggest problems we have in our society today is that everyone gets a trophy. So we've gone from in the 1820s or so in this country, if you did not produce, you didn't really generally eat because there weren't all that many very wealthy families that would just provide for you if you didn't do
Or
anything.
social programs, right? That just covered it.
Yeah, and so in the 1920s, fast forward 100 years, you have the Great Depression, and it was very similar, but there were more families that might allow for members of their clan or family to not produce but still eat. And then you fast forward 50 years into the, 60s, 70s or so, and all these government assistance programs, like you just kind of touched on, pop up. And some of them, like intentionally, for example, destroyed the nuclear black family, right? Like they, the programs incentivized people to get divorced and do all these weird things. And now it's gotten so bad that in this country, we have, like, I heard during COVID that the benefits were so strong for people who were not working that it was something like if you had two people who each had a kid from another marriage living in the same house with those kids, each individual person could collect up to $100,000 in benefits for not working. So you have this like insane over allowance for helping people to be lazy or get a trophy for doing nothing. And so I believe that Newton's third law of motion, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I believe that's true. And we have to find a way to help people get to the point where they understand that and we're going to talk more about this later, I'm sure, because you're an expert in getting people to learn and realize that trauma, and I think we should touch on your definition of trauma too, because it's great. Um, Trauma is in some ways what makes you stronger, but if you go too far down the path of identifying, using your trauma to identify you as a person, then you will then basically manifest more trauma in your life. Is that kind of correct from your like?
Very much so. The our traumas, which like we can go into a deeper discussion here about that in a second. Like, what do we mean by trauma? All that. But for me, just in the shorthand, cutting right to the point for people, for me, what trauma is a strategy of survival that our subconscious uses to keep ourselves safe. And like to me, that's not something you're going to hear anywhere else. Like that trauma is a strategy of survival that our subconscious uses to keep ourselves safe. And there's three big parts of that. It's a strategy. It's not a conscious strategy. It's a subconscious strategy, which means it's below the surface of our awareness. We're not aware of these strategies. And the entire purpose is to keep ourselves safe. Those traumas are always our superpower and our kryptonite. And that's where I love the story of Superman based on the fact that it very much describes the mechanism of trauma in someone's life. For Superman, how did he become Superman?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, how did Superman become Superman?
So that's something that everybody should know, and I've seen plenty of Superman movies,
Just
but
the basic story of it. What happened at the very beginning?
didn't he get separated from his family?
Yeah, not only that, like his parents knew that Krypton, his planet, was going to explode and everyone was going to die. So they were able to put him on a ship and send him off to this planet called Earth. And so when he got to Earth, because he's under our yellow sun, he has superpowers. So Superman only becomes Superman based on the biggest trauma in his life, the loss of his family, the loss of everyone he knows, the loss of his planet, loss of his home. And then the ironic part about this How does Superman get weak? What's the only thing that makes Superman weak?
Kryptonite.
What is kryptonite? It's a piece of his home planet. So the same trauma of loss of his planet, loss of his home, loss of his family, loss of everyone he knows is the exact same thing that makes him weak. And so for us, it's the same thing. And that's why our traumas are so sticky, because they are not just damaging. They do provide us with powers, with superpowers beyond what other people have. But they also always produce the biggest limitations in our life. But in your subconscious mind, this strategy has given us all these gifts. It's kept us safe. Look, we're alive. And look, people have rewarded us for doing these things. And so then when you face the limitation on a subconscious level, is it worth the risk of letting go of these tools to potentially maybe have a better life? No, we'll just stick where we are. We're safe. We're here. Look, some people like our mistakes, our challenges, our untruths. And so that's why we get stuck in these loops where we feel like we're always just one podcast from freedom. Like, oh, if I listen to this one, my whole life's going to change. One more book, one more job, one more advancement. Then we end up in the same spot.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, and I'm sure we're going to circle back around to that more in just a little while, but kind of back to your story.
Yep.
You were not just a SEAL, you were a officer, which obviously means you were leading teams. And a lot of people assume that means that you might not have been on the battlefield, but as we've already discussed, or I mentioned in your intro, you not only were in battle, you sustained multiple injuries. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us a little bit about, like, obviously you went through BUDS, which is known as being incredibly difficult. You were the acceptance rate from the Naval Academy before you even got to BUDS is really low. So you're like making cut after cut after cut. You become a SEAL. What's it like then?
Well, not because I did so well in BUDS, I got to pick whatever team I wanted to go to, which is relatively rare. And so I chose SEAL Team 3 based on the fact that at the time, this would have been in early 1999, so spring of 99. There's nothing going on in the world, right? SEALs haven't done anything for years and years and years. And I figured that if there's going to ever be some action, something to do, it was going to be in the Middle East. And at the time, SEAL Team 3 was responsible for the Middle East. So I got to pick the team I wanted to go to. And as we know from history, like, it was about to get really bad in the Middle East. And so from that perspective, I got to experience what it meant to be a leader in a super high functioning unit in the Super Bowl. Like, I got to go to war, which because of popular culture, most people assume if you're a SEAL, you went off to war, you went and fought, you've blown stuff up, you've shot at bad guys. And the reality is the vast majority of SEALs never do, because we cover the entire planet 24/7, 365. And there's only ever conflict in one very small part of the world for a set period of time. So most SEALs that you meet have never done anything. They've done a lot of practice, but they haven't ever done any real missions. And I was fortunate enough to be right in the middle of it at the perfect point in my career, because as junior officers, so as new officers, the SEALs are unique from most other units in that the junior officers are in the units that are in the field. Like, we actually go in the field and do the work. You do that for about 7 years, and then you're not so much in the field, you're more on the side, and then you don't get to go in at all, right? As you get more and more senior. And so and this is where you can see the not normal brain. I'm saying I got lucky to go off to war and put myself at risk, put my friends at risk, and not only that, but be responsible for all of it. And that is a testament to the not typical brain. And That was one of the things I always say when people ask, what does it take to get through the SEAL training? And the answer I've said from what has been pretty deep research is the only common thread I could find is you can't be quite right in the head. You got to be off. Because normal people are going to say no 10 times before they ever get the chance to be a SEAL, much less once you're a SEAL. Normal people are going to be like, no, I don't, we should not do that. I don't want to do that. Have someone else do it. And we're fighting to see who gets to.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that junior officers had to go out. I mean, it makes perfect sense that they would have to go out and actually be in the
Just a
shit.
member of the team. And we had what was a third officer. So there's a platoon commander. Our main fighting unit is a platoon, a 16-man platoon, and you have a platoon commander and assistant platoon commander. And those two they have leadership and management responsibilities within the team. Because they had more officers than they had positions, they created what they call was the third O, or third officer position. And that was amazing because you didn't really have a job. And because you're a junior and you're an officer, they would just, it was the only time the enlisted guys could make you do whatever the hell they wanted. So we always got the worst jobs. So you weren't allowed to have any real say of what was going on. You had to do whatever you were told to do. And the whole point was to make you experienced in what your men were doing, so that when you became able to be in a leadership or management position, you knew exactly what these guys were doing, how they were working. Not only that, but the people that led me or managed me as a third O were all the enlisted guys. And so you gain this incredible respect for their capabilities, their skill, their professionalism.
Wow. Wow. That's, like I said, it makes perfect sense. But like, whether it's the government or businesses, there are a lot of situations where people are in leadership positions that should not be there, like not even close. And
Well, I mean, there's no risk. You miss quarterly earnings, like, okay, so what? If I screw up, if I make one tiny mistake, 3 people die.
yeah, yeah. Well, and kind of going along that path, is there a particular mission that comes to mind as the most challenging that you were a part of?
And I could answer challenging on 2 levels. One way I could answer challenging is based on the physical hardship associated with it. But arguably, as a SEAL, I never really paid attention to that, right? Like, it always sucked. It was never nice. They didn't send us to nice places. We only got missions that every other unit said was impossible, right? In this, my competition is actively trying to kill me. Like, so when you look at which missions sucked, they all did, right? They were all hard. There's never one that was like, oh, that was an easy one. The challenge that I think is greater, especially from the perspective of being a leader in the team, right? Like being an officer in the team, was the opening night of Operation Iraqi Freedom. So the second Iraq War. SEAL Team 3 was responsible for securing all of Iraq's oil infrastructure. And Saddam had promised to blow it up, right? So if there's any hostilities, if there was a plane or a missile or a boot on the ground, he was just going to blow up Iraq's distribution or ability to distribute oil. Specifically, that mission had 5 parts. And those 5 parts culminated into the world's largest oil platform. So all of Iraq's oil infrastructure goes to this manifold metering station, then it goes to a pump house, 2 pump houses, and then it goes out to 2 platforms. So the real critical piece or critical note on this is this oil platform. And like I said, there's 2, but during the first Iraq War, Saddam had successfully blown up part of the first oil platform when there was hostility. So we knew this wasn't a false threat. And the team 3, had to secure all of that at one time. And my particular part of mission was the oil platform. And the way I put it into civilian terms so you can understand it is, my job was to go have a gunfight on the world's largest gas station that was rigged with explosives. And when you put it in those words, like, oh, and when I say the world's largest gas station, this gas station is bigger than a strip mall. It was 12 football fields long. It was 3 football fields wide. It could fuel 4 super tankers that are 1,000 feet long at one time. I mean,
Wow.
it is it's a city in the water. It's massive. And we were tasked with securing that with 24 guys with an expectation of a minimum of 90 workers and an unknown number of soldiers. And so this particular mission, what made it the most challenging for me was not necessarily the planning or the execution of it, but 2 days prior to going on that mission, one of my classmates from the Naval Academy was an aide to my commanding officer, and they had what was the final like green light red light mission or brief of this, where the commanding officer had to decide, do we say yes to executing this plan or no? And two of the important facts that they have to mull over on each part of the mission of the whole, is the expected casualty rate and the expected success rate. And obviously you don't want the troops going on the mission to know these are the rates of, we think you're going to be successful and dead. And so I'm not part of that mission, but my friend was part of it. He heard the numbers and he couldn't live with himself without telling me what the numbers were. And the expected success rate was 80%. And so at 80%, you're like, oh, that's pretty good. That's just a B. That's solid. But then you have to think about, well, what does it mean if we're not successful? Well, it means that we've created the world's largest environmental disaster, right? That's the consequence. Like if it's not, you don't pass a grade, like we deny the entire Northern Arabian Gulf from ships being able to be in it. We make it so that all the countries that use desalination to get water go without water. So massive consequence. The second one was the expected casualty rate, and this is the one that bothered him. They approved the mission with the expectation of a 50% casualty rate.
Wow.
So in order to achieve an 80% rate of success in the mission, they were expecting that they were going to injure or kill 50% of our forces in this particular part of that mission. So when you think about that, that's a coins flip. So think about, like, if you're sitting here listening, think about getting into your car to go to work tomorrow. Like we had to get onto a boat to go to work that day and having to flip a coin. And if it lands on heads, you live. And if it lands on tails, you die. Do you get in the car and drive to work? Right? It's probably not.
No.
Right. And so that was the first one. I had to face not a significant risk to my mortality. Like I had to accept that I had a 50% chance of not being alive within 4 days. And so that one I got through pretty quick because I signed up to be a SEAL. I always wanted to go out a blaze of glory. What better blaze of glory than this? And so it took me about 60 seconds and this walk back to my tent to be like, okay, I accept it. I'm dead. I'll be dead in 3 days. Okay, let's go. I'm fine. This was the harder one. This is what it made more challenging. Imagine someone you care about in your life. Imagine that person was willing to give their life for you. Like that's how important you are to them and they are to you. Imagine handing them that coin. Here you go, to your spouse, to your best friend, to your child, and give them a coin knowing they're flipping it. And if it lands on tails, they're dead. And you handed them the coin. That was what hit me more than anything else, because I did all the planning. I'm doing the tactical leadership on this. I'm handing a coin to 24, 23 of my best friends in the world. And half of those people are going to be injured or dead on this mission. That weight of leadership is hard to explain. That's why I believe is the most challenging mission.
Wow. Yeah, that's on another level,
And I have 27. Like, you're not talking, this is a 40-year-old grizzled veteran. Like, yep, 27 years old. That's the responsibility I have.
Wow. And I know you said that was the most challenging, but do you know how many missions total you were boots on the ground associated with?
So I actually, the answer I usually give is around 200. The reason I say around 200 is I include our training missions. So not training where we're like practicing shooting, but we do full blown missions, a lot of them in training. The reason I do that is, unbeknownst to most people, more SEALs are injured and killed in our training missions than in combat. And
Wow.
so I know just from statistics that our training missions are more dangerous than our actual missions. And so I would say about 200. When it comes to actual combat missions, that's a hard thing to, well, I'll ask you. My last mission was to go to Lebanon, and I was doing intelligence operations in Lebanon. In Lebanon, I had one other military personnel in the whole country operating with me. So there's just two of us. Most of the time, I was operating alone. That was a year mission, just over a year. And on that year mission, I'm working every day, and I'm working every day alone in a extremely dangerous environment. There are no missions. Every day is a mission. So do you count that as 365 missions, or do you count that as one? Right. Uh, and was it every day? No, there's some days I'd stay in the embassy and do some work, but yeah, I'd say 200 days of that 365, if not 300 days, I'm out at risk. And the reason that was the most risky is what makes SEALs so capable is the team. What makes us invincible is the team. And in this mission, I had no team, just me. And I'm quote unquote fighting against the Syrians. I'm fighting against the Lebanese. I'm fighting against the two Muslim groups in there. I'm fighting against Hezbollah. It wasn't just one bad guy. There was 5 different groups that wanted to kill me while I was there.
Wow. Wow. So, last question regarding that part of your career, if you could say, but um, when apparently you were injured multiple times, uh, and I find it interesting that when you chose the most challenging mission, you weren't injured. Uh, on the one hand, on the other hand, when you're injured in combat, I'm assuming Mark Devine on his episode said that it was either in his episode or one of our prior conversations. He said that the first thing he does or did when an injury occurred was wiggle all of his fingers and toes, because like I'm alive and now I just want to make sure I'm not paralyzed.
Yeah.
It's like so when you sustain the injuries, I'm guessing, well, I know that maybe you were in shock initially, but then you're when the shock goes away, it's pain. You're dealing with a lot of pain. And when those injuries occurred, were there situations where after you were injured, it was like, I don't know if I'm even going to make it out of here, or were you fortunate when that kind of thing happened to have enough people on your team to be able to ensure that you got out of there?
Um, a couple things. In my reality, and I believe this is the same in everyone's reality, pain is a choice. Uh, and just saying that might piss a bunch of people off. Like, no, it isn't. I've got a sore back and it hurts all the time. I don't choose to have that pain. And unfortunately, that is a false view of how it works for a human being. Um, I'll give this example. Say you've got a sprained ankle, and that sprained ankle is going to hurt, right? And you're going to experience that pain, and it's going to be like, could be all encompassing, right? If I stab you in your hand, does your ankle hurt still?
At the time of the stabbing, I'm sure it's going to, that's going to hurt more than the ankle for sure.
Do you experience now? That was a bit of a trick question. Does the pain exist? Yes. Do you experience the pain of the ankle? No. You experience the pain of the hand. Well, that's interesting. So you're telling me if I can direct your attention enough to something else, you don't feel pain, you don't experience pain anymore. The ankle never stopped hurting. You just don't experience it. And so that to me gives us an insight into, well, my focus and attention can create an environment where I don't experience pain. The pain can still be there, but I don't have to experience it. And for me, I had perfected that skill. And I did that through two ways. One, being able to be very good at directing my focus and attention, and being able to have the perseverance or the self-regulation to maintain it. So the other side of that was I was extremely emotionally and physically disassociated. What I mean by that is I created a psychological break between my emotional state and my mental state, and my physical state and my mental state. And that is part of what is required to be a SEAL. If you were to experience all the pain, that was in your body during BUD/S, you quit. And what you notice with every SEAL, and you could take any SEAL, take Mark Devine as a great example. He and I have done stuff together. And if I was to make it really shitty, like really painful, you'll see both of us like click into this thing of you're really just controlling a robot, right? You're just remote controlling this robotic body. Like you can see SEALs like click out of the experience of what's going on in their body. And that if you can't do that, if you can't disassociate physically, you're not going to make it. And I would argue the same thing exists with disassociating emotionally. If you can't disassociate emotionally, you're not going to be a SEAL. Now, the better you disassociate physically, the better you disassociate mentally, the better SEAL you are. I call it being a god of war. In a god of war, I have zero experience from my body and I have zero experience from my emotional state. All I have is my mental. And not only do I have my mental state, but I have massive control over what that mental state is doing. In that way, you can perform, act, make decisions faster, better than someone who is experiencing their emotions, is experiencing their pain, cares about the future, has an attachment to what might happen. And being a god of war enabled me to do things that normal humans can't. And sometimes weird things. Like I remember one time we were in the middle of we fought all the way from Baghdad to Tikrit, Saddam's hometown in the north. We were the first when I say we, SEAL Team 3 was the first military forces into Tikrit. We secured Saddam's largest palace up on the hill. He had 12 palaces in the city, but the biggest one up on the hill, his family palace, so that we could put sniper overwatch for the Marines coming through the town. And so we did all of that. We secured it. And we really we secured that thing. And then the Marines secure part of the city. They're holding that city. And we were first time in 23 days, we got to like have a night off. And a night off is relative when you're in enemy territory, but like we got to go to sleep. So we got to go to sleep in these tents. We're on these tents kind of on the front lawn of this big palace, and mortars start coming in. So they start launching mortars. The mortars start landing all around us. And I very distinctly remember this, like the mortars come off and I open up my tent. I kind of look outside and I see the mortar hit 200, 300 yards away, 400 yards away, like down there. And you have some of the Marines around, they're all running around. And I look at it and I zip my tent back up and go back to sleep, which has to appear insane.
Yeah.
But for me, I just did math because, again, I don't feel pain. I'm not attached to my life if I'm alive or dead. I have no emotional reaction to this. And I'm just doing math. If I run around, I have just the same chance of being hit by the mortar if I sleep here. Well, I'm just going to stay here. If the mortar hits, it hits. If it hits next to me and rips my legs off, rips my legs off. And so at that point, just math. I'll just stay here. And my own men, much less the Marines, thought I was insane. Now, I'm not insane. I'm just a god of war, emotionally and physically disassociated.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And that's, as you said, I mean, it's a combination, I think, of, you've got nature versus nurture on the one hand. On the other hand, if you were to, I believe that all human characteristics or the descriptions of human characteristics, like everyone falls like somewhere between the first percentile and the 99th percentile. So, as you said, like if you don't have, like it's basically like you need a perfect combination of characteristics to even get to buds. And then once you're there, you're still only, based on the research I've done, the conversations I've had, it's maybe 10% will make it through buds. Is that
Yeah,
about right?
between anywhere from 10 to 15%. Mine was just under. We went from 135 to 11. So we had less than 10% graduate of the
Wow.
original students. And what's interesting about what you're saying, which is absolutely true, what allows someone to graduate is not their physical prowess. What allows them to graduate is they have the right mix of being screwed up. And I think it's very important to say this for the audience, because a lot of people might be listening like, oh man, I wish I was like Larry. Like, I wish I was a God of War. The it is, to get to that place, you have to be messed up. You have to be in not good states, right? Not aligned states. Like, that's an interesting piece. And then the other part of it is, in order to act as a God of War, you have to have experienced significant trauma to create those disassociations. And so the biggest battle, the hardest injury to heal for me was reconnecting to my heart, reconnecting to my body. And that healing. Any of the physical injuries I have were child's play compared to fixing that. And so it's not something to aspire to. It's like, I look at it as, my children will not be Navy SEALs. They won't, because they aren't going to get screwed up enough. Like, their lives and the experiences they have aren't going to fuck them up enough that they could do it. Like, they will be unable to do it. And what's crazy about it for me is, at this point in time, I did it, right? I did all of it. I did it at a very high level. Because I've healed, I couldn't do it now. It's impossible for me to be a SEAL today.
Wow.
That blows me away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, me too. And that goes hand in hand with another note that I had made based on research I've done on you, and you've also said that the journey as an entrepreneur, I think you use the words, I would rather go through buds and everything associated with becoming a Navy SEAL like 10 times than what I have been through as an entrepreneur, something
Yep.
along those lines.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean it's and then there's I've spent most of my career, 20-year career as an entrepreneur,
Yep.
and people, I don't have that necessarily that switch that you described, that you and Mark and all
Yep.
other SEALs have. On the one hand, on the other hand, I constantly get comments from friends and family members that are along the lines of like, what are you like? Why is it that you are willing to continue to put
But you
up
say
with?
you don't have the switch. You do. There's no way you are where you are today. And the little bit I know about what you've produced in your life and in your businesses, there is zero chance are where you are today if you weren't able to have that switch. And what that is disassociation. And what that disassociation always comes from some unrecognized, unresolved trauma in your life. And that's one of the things, like, the more powerful thing that I say is that high performance in any domain requires trauma. That's nuts. Like, the best football players, the best soccer players, the best surgeons, the best business people, pick any domain at the highest level. If you're at that highest level, you have unrecognized and unresolved traumas. And it's a unique mix of it. Like, we all have some, but high performers have a unique mix of it. And that unique mix of traumas is what enables you to be the top of the game and keeps you from feeling the fulfillment, the joy, the connection that you want in life. The whole reason you're performing is to feel safe, to have joy and fulfillment, to live in connection. But because your performance is driven by your traumas, you will get performance, but none of that. And that's where most entrepreneurs live. They live in this world of, I've given so much. I've excelled where others have failed. I have produced what I wanted to produce, yet I still feel incomplete. I still feel unfulfilled. I still have more to do. Maybe it's another business. Maybe it's a bigger quarter. And that is a testament to the traumas that drive you or the traumas that limit you. The traumas that give you superpowers, like Superman, are the same ones that give you the kryptonite and make you weak.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And that's where it kind of gets deep, you know.
Oh yeah.
It's I mean, I think I'm like, as soon as you said what you just said about anyone in any field that accomplishes
Above
like
average.
yeah, above average, like all these people just started flashing through my mind, like that I know well. And it just I'm not I don't believe I'm on the autism spectrum, but I am dyslexic. But on the other hand, I'm also twice exceptional. So like
Yeah.
I was adding mixed fractions in my head without being taught what they were when I was like 3 years old. When
Yeah. So I bet if we pull some of those autism tests, you might score on some of them. We don't, yeah. I wouldn't, it's funny because it's not only the test, it's the behavior sets. And when you listen to the behavior sets, I'm like, I either do that or I wish I could every day, but I don't. I restrict myself. So I don't know. We'd see, you know.
yeah. Yeah, and so, but with that being said, I couldn't even write my name. Like I wrote the J backwards and the S backwards, and
Yeah.
like pretty much anything that wasn't like a U or a W when I first
That was,
started.
yeah, it could go. My youngest son, Hunter, who's 9.5, has dysgraphia. So dysgraphia is where he has a very hard time with the fine motor skills of it and reverses all his letters. So he doesn't have the dyslexia, but he has the challenge of being able to put what's in his head to paper.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So that this I'm sure at least relatively challenging for him. The dyslexia was confusing and challenging for
Yeah,
me. And so that with that being said, it's like and ironically, again, I keep using the word ironically because there's a lot of things in this conversation that go hand in hand with other
yeah,
content we've already produced or like one of the things that, oh gosh, I'm gonna, do you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is?
I do.
So one of the things he said recently, I think on the Diary of the CEO podcast, was that a lot of people make a lot of progress with healing when they realize and understand and commit to the fact that the struggle is what built you. Like,
Yeah.
so there's
You're not
that.
a victim to it. What he's saying is you're not a victim to it. You are
Yes.
to me, you are the author of it. I am the author of every challenge I've had in my life. And the reason that I've created those challenges is to give my subconscious a feeling of safety or a feeling of control because it learned some lesson in an early survival situation I went through. And now it has tools. Like it worked when I was 4 or 5 or 6. And then it's going to want to use those tools over and over again to stay safe, which requires the same environment. So if most of us, if we look back and we allow ourselves to look at the past experiences in which we felt like we didn't have control or we felt that were traumatic. And the reason I use those two things is a lot of the listeners will say, I don't have any traumas. I didn't go to war, right? I didn't get beat up as a little kid and left for dead. I didn't lose my parents at 7. They're very easy to say, I don't have traumas. You guys do, obviously. But then when you change the definition from this big experience to a perceived loss of control, well, every human experience a perceived loss of control, especially as kids. And if you survive that perceived loss of control, because every time we're in that that perception of no control, we get into a neurochemical and physiological state of survival. And that's what creates the next step in our journey, which if you survive, you learn. And as we said at the very beginning, all trauma is a strategy of survival. It's something you learned on a subconscious level when you felt like you didn't have control. And so by the very nature of being a human, which is limited, meaning I know I can't live on this planet without other humans, at that point in time, by the very nature of being human, I will experience trauma. And if I live, I'll have subconscious strategies of survival that will give me gifts and make sure it's my ceiling.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm sure that people that are listening to this or watching this, some of them they're gonna be like, wow, like
Yeah.
that, because it's deep, and a lot of people don't want to admit some of the things like,
That they're not in charge. That's what people want to resist. No, no, Larry, I'm consciously in charge of what's going on. I don't have some sort of hidden operating system in my subconscious making all my choices for me. And so what does that go back to? I want to feel like I'm in control. So those people that are struggling, like some of you out there that are listening, like, I hear what he's saying. It makes complete sense. I can't break his logic, but I don't know about that. What that is your subconscious saying, hey, we have a screwdriver in our hand and we've used the screwdriver a lot. And look at all we built with it. Just because the screwdriver is the reason you aren't living where you want to live, let's just stay where we're at. Like, that guy's full of shit. Let's not talk. No, we'll just stay where we're at. And so when I go back to it, is like, how can you acknowledge that what I'm saying is true for you? Have you think back in your life? Have you had times in your life where you felt like you didn't control what was about to come next? Can you think of times when you were a kid? How about in your business? This is why entrepreneurs, by the very nature of being entrepreneurs, require trauma, is that entrepreneurship is not controlling stuff, right? So you have to be comfortable in an environment where you don't control stuff. You're going to be a CEO of a startup. And so when you start looking at it, oh yeah, I do. And then if you really are careful looking at all these times in your past, you'll start to see that they're somewhat the same. It's like over and over again, people have left me, people have died, or over and over again, I'm at fault for the bad things in my life. Over and over again, I have to suffer, no one supports me. And you'll see those are the patterns of survival. And those are the things that, one, gave you power. Like, look at what I was able to accomplish. I got through the hardest military training in the war, got awards, got to keep every one of my SEALs alive through hundreds of battles. Look at all the benefits I got from my traumas. That's also why I had trouble in my marriages, trouble in my businesses, trouble with my children, being a parent, because what worked in combat does not work in the boardroom or the bedroom.
yeah. So, and that kind of goes hand in hand with something that you and I touched on in a prior conversation. And more specifically, you said that you've coached tons and tons of people, including multiple billionaires
Yep.
who you have a similar conversation to the one we're having. And I mean, you'll know better than me, obviously, but it sounded to me like when we spoke before, it's something like, I don't know, probably 95% of them are going to initially be in denial that
Yep.
that they're not in control.
Yep.
Like, and so then
Not
for
only are
me,
they in denial that they're not in control, they're in denial that something happened in their life that has resulted in them not being in conscious control. Because are they in control? Yeah, their subconscious is in control. It's right where it wants to be. But when your subconscious wants to be here to be safe and your conscious wants to be here to be happy, who wins? Subconscious wins every day. I'll give a practical example for business of this. And I think a lot of your business owners will can identify with this example. In my first decade of running companies, I was 2 weeks from being broke for 10 years. Never went broke, never missed payroll, but 2 weeks from it, 2 weeks from not having enough money, 2 weeks from how are we going to cover this? How are we going to do it? And it was 10 years into it. I was at the airport, CFO calls, hey, Larry, I don't know how we're going to make payroll in 2 weeks. And I remember initially I get the panic, right? Like, oh no. And then I start doing the math, like, thank God for the autism. I'm like, wait a minute. I've gotten this call just about every other month for the last 10 years. And guess what? Every month for the last 10 years, we made payroll. And I remember thinking, holy crap, there are times where my businesses were making $1 million a month. There are times where they're making $1,000 a month. If we were making 1,000 or 1,000,000, I was 2 weeks from being broke. That's impossible unless I want it. There's got to be something in me that wants to be 2 weeks from being broke, because it's impossible to be in that situation that consistently across that many varied businesses. And so in that moment, I'm like, I'm not going to worry about it. And all of a sudden, in letting go of the worrying about it, guess what? Started making more money. Now it's 3 weeks from being broke, then a month. And now I couldn't go broke if I wanted to. But all of that led to my subconscious strategy of everything's going to go wrong. Like I learned at 8 years old, everything's going to go wrong for you, Larry. And guess what? That worked really well as an officer in the SEALs, where things went wrong regularly. I was always prepared. It didn't work well when it came to making financial choices, because I was required to make financial choices that made sure that everything was about to go wrong. So 10 years of being 2 weeks from being broke.
So then the magic in that story you just told was ironically similar, very similar. Like when my wife sees this, she's probably gonna be like, "Whoa!" Because for like two reasons. Number one,
I knew
like,
I had an expectation this might hit close to home a little bit, but yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I guess to just kind of cut to the chase, it's with my current set of companies, they're almost exactly 10 years old, and I was incredibly aggressive with growth and real successful with growth. I mean, we doubled our top line for 4 consecutive years,
Yep.
8 figures, this and that. Um, and that leads to exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
Like payroll is like always stressful.
Oh yeah.
And I recently got
Well, first, before we get to that, did you have to make the choices over these 10 years that resulted in that?
didn't have to.
That's
Well,
the key part. There there is a path where Justin, right, is on a different path, making different choices, still growing the companies and not being 2 weeks from being broke. But this Justin 100% needed it. We got massive growth, but we have massive stress.
yes. So the magic then is, and I guess to kind of come back around to like what you said, you you were at a point where all hell could break loose, which
Yes.
for you, it's at least
Was
a little.
situation normal? That was just
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, that's just Thursday. And that's been Thursday for 17 years.
yeah. So on the other hand, though, you had this, as you described it, point where you were like, I'm just not going to worry about it anymore.
I'm
And
going to, yeah, I'm going to stop being attached to the future where I fail. And that's the dense statement, right? What I gave up in that, it was in an airport like convenience store. I remember the call specifically. I didn't give up on my company. I gave up on the false belief that I wasn't going to make payroll. So I was attached to failing. I was attached to a future where I failed. And I let go of that attachment, because what was creating the choices that would lead to imminent failure was the fundamental belief that something's wrong with me. And if something's wrong with me, how could I be a successful businessman? You can't. It has to be my fault. So I have to make choices where everyone's stressed and at risk, because it has to be my fault, because I'm fundamentally flawed. By letting go of my attachment to failure, all of a sudden it breaks the cycle.
And was that a conscious, like what you just described, was that your conscious mind with those thoughts, or was that more of an underlying subconscious chain of logic that you didn't realize was going on in the background?
It, what you're asking, the question you're asking is the epitome of my business today, right? I got lucky there. Now, I got lucky based on the fact that around that same time, I started healing my traumas. My traumas are strategies of survival. So as I started to heal, and for me, what healing trauma is to bring into my conscious awareness the subconscious patterns. And so I was starting that process around there. That's the only reason I was able to make that choice. Right. So to be completely honest, that was not a fully thought out conscious decision. That was a result of starting to free myself from my internally created lies, which was now opening up the possibility of different choices. The epitome of what I do now is shortcut that for people and make it conscious. Like, I want to give you the roadmap of your subconscious patterns so you can make choices now. Because up until that point, you are at the whim of your subconscious and its patterns. And because it's below the surface of your awareness, you aren't allowed to make a conscious choice around it. So I now can every day make a conscious choice. Is Larry fundamentally flawed, or is he not? Is he fundamentally flawed, or is he perfect manifestation of the universe? One or the other. I can't live in both. Okay, if I'm a perfect manifestation of the universe, well, then is everything going to go wrong for me? No, it can't. Nothing can go wrong for me. Right? Every experience I have serves me. Okay, well, if that's true, can I hurt everyone around me? No. Actually, if I live in that truth and my truth, I can only serve those that are attracted to me. And in them being attracted to me, what I mean by attracted, in me living in my truth, my light, some people are going to want to be close, and some people are going to not like that light and go away. So that's what I mean by the truth. And living in my truth and serving people from my truth, that bi-directional flow of love or connection, that's the whole thing. And in that, nothing can go wrong. But I can make a choice, because I know on the other side of that coin, what do I have? I'm fundamentally flawed. Everything's going to go wrong for me. When it goes wrong, everyone I love is going to get hurt. It's all my fault. Why is it all my fault? Because I'm fundamentally flawed. Well, I'm fundamentally flawed. Well, then everything's going to go bad. When everything goes bad, people are going to get hurt. When I get hurt, oh, it's my fault. Why is it my fault? Oh, because it's just a loop. Now I can break that loop. And when I break that loop, the choices I would make in that loop, I can't make outside of that loop. I can no longer make a choice where I'm going to be 2 weeks from being broke, because that doesn't exist in the world of truth. If I allow myself to live in my old stories, now it can show up again. And so, like I said, that's my business. That's what I do for people, is to give them insights into these subconscious strategies so they don't have to guess. So it doesn't have to be lucky like it was for me.
So then the next logical question is, when that happened in that convenience store at the airport, was there a bridge that you went over between your conscious and subconscious mind? Like, at that point or prior to that point, were you consistently thinking, like, I'm here, I am where I am at this point? Like, did you have those negative thoughts about yourself and all those repercussions that were inflicted upon you and everyone you loved?
Of course, every single day I lived in that truth. And what is it? And I say that specifically, like, I lived in that truth. It was true to me. Now, is it true at that point in time that Larry is fundamentally flawed? No. So my truth was not truth in the world. And when I live in a truth internally that is untrue in the world, I suffer. That suffering is post-traumatic stress. It's the stress caused by living in a strategy that is no longer coherent with your environment. So all post-traumatic stress is, and that's why everyone has PTS. I won't say the D because it's not a disorder. Every human at some point establishes some subconscious strategy We then use it. And as long as we stay in the same environment, if I would have never left the battlefield, I would have never had post traumatic stress because my traumas, my strategies worked. As soon as I left the battlefield and I carried those strategies into a new environment, and why did I carry on? Like anyone would say, well, you're no longer in battle. Don't think the same way. Well, those strategies are subconscious. I didn't know they were conscious. I didn't consciously know them. If I did, I wouldn't have done it. But because I have to act in alignment with my truth, I act in alignment with my truth and my environment matches. And it's in that separation between my conscious mind and my subconscious mind that suffering lives. And that's the bigger the separation, the more the trauma lives in the middle of it. And as a human, it's just the way it goes.
So then a very key takeaway here for me and the listeners is that you don't have to be sitting there thinking that you are flawed or broken and you're getting what you deserve. And as a result, anyone who cares and or loves you is too. It can be happening, and you may be confused, but you don't have to be, again, consciously thinking, I'm getting what I deserve because I'm flawed.
Yep. And so when you mention this bridge, I instead of thinking of it like a bridge, I think of it like a doorway. So on one side of the doorway is untruth, strategies of survival, my old stories, right? They used to work in combat. They don't work anymore. On the other side is the land of truth, alignment, where instead of my subconscious and conscious always pulling in two different directions, they're aligned and pulling in the same direction. And when they're aligned and pulling in the same direction, my highest consciousness, my connection to God, the universe, all that's greater than me, that radio station is now tuned. But if my conscious and subconscious are fighting, that radio station's on the wrong thing. I can't hear it. I can't receive from the source, from God, from all that's greater than us. So I got the choice. I can be on this side of the door, or that side of the door. My job is to recognize which side I'm on and choose to walk through the door. So to me, it isn't a bridge, it's a doorway. And I've been at this with deep intent for 7 years now. Do I still end up on the other side of the door? Yeah. I was there earlier today in a call with a business partner, and he laughs because he knows my untruths. And he's like, "Oh, no, buddy, I got you. It's gonna be okay. We got this. You're gonna have enough money. Don't worry about it." Because he saw me on the backside. Everything's gonna go bad. My fiance is gonna. I'm not gonna give her the wedding she wants. It's all my fault. I'm gonna screw everything up. And he's just kind of laughing, like, "Okay." And then he shows me the door and opens it, like, "Hey, do you want to walk through today?" And so that every day I wake up, which side am I on? Am I going to walk through today? Sometimes I like staying on the other side. Sometimes I'll stay there for fun a little bit because it feels good. But even that I'm choosing. And I know because I made the choice to stay, it's not going to be long before I get to the other side, because on one side of the door is victim, on the other side of the door is author. Which one do you want to be? I'm now the author of my life. I'm not a victim to anything in it.
Yeah, and that's gold. Like for me it's gold because that's just another way we're very similar
Yep.
because I had a similar moment. Like I said, in this set of companies, I'm about 10 years in, and we made a decision to buy a multi-million dollar building at one of the worst times in history, which
Oh,
was
I've done that twice. I started a whole new company in 2008. That was fun.
I did
After
too.
buying a house $100,000 overvalued in San Diego, like, I'm with you.
Yeah. So, but like where the real like magic in this part of the conversation occurred for me, and hopefully people that are listening to it or watching it, is that I recently had a situation that was very similar to your situation in the convenience store at the airport,
Yep.
where I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like this is like
No
I
more.
yeah, like I cannot like continue to take the type of of
Well, wait 1 minute, because language is so important to me. What you said is I cannot. That's not the right words. The right word is I will not.
there you go. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're because right? You are not make I don't believe you're making this choice and obligation. I have no options. You're saying for the first time, you're saying no, I will not do this anymore. Am I right or wrong?
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I will not continue
Yep.
to ABCD. Like there's a lot of
Yep.
things that
There's a
as you kn-
list we
yeah,
both have.
yeah, yeah. And with that being said, like there was this like opening of using your word doors, various
Yep.
doors from
Yep.
there like imagine being in like an octagon and having doors like on each
Yep.
wall of the octagon. Like I made that will not
Yes.
decision. And it's like all these doors start opening up and all these people that I've needed to come into my life for various reasons start coming in and like it's like, this very interesting shift, which you described
Yep.
experiencing too. With all that being said, though, just this morning, you were you were on the other side of the
Yep.
door, right? And
Yep.
like the same thing happens to me. So that's I think a really important thing for people to remember is that like once you're there, doesn't mean you're going to stay there. Like,
That's why the big thing I say, and this was important to me because uh, not only did I have, let's call it the traumas that everyone has, right? By the nature of being a finite, limited human, we all will experience a perceived loss of control as a child. We'll create a strategy. If we live, we're going to then use it in the wrong area, right? That's everyone does that. Not only did I have that, but I had 10 years of combat. So think of that as like it's not bigger than yours or bigger than a normal person. It's just like deeper because I used all of those years of combat, disassociation, everything we talked about as a means to deepen my relationship with my strategies. Right. So I have both of these and I spent years with intense dedication to healing. And I would find myself on the other side of the door and I would feel bad and guilty. Right. Like, come on, Larry. Like, we've gone through this 1,000 times. Like, you're back into the same thing. And then I would put judgment on it. Like, I know guys that went through a hell of a lot worse stuff than I did. And here I am being, whining about this, doing the same thing again. Why can't I get it right? Oh, what does that sound like? I'm fundamentally flawed. I'm going to mess it up. It's all going to go bad. And so what I realized is that our journey as a human is to health. Like our journey as a human in health or to health, to alignment, to the purest, greatest expression of ourselves, right? That's what, when we talk about that, it isn't to be healed. There is no healed. It's to recognize which side of the door am I on, and then to make the choice and take the actions to get on the other side. How quick can I do that? And when I stop judging my trauma showing up again, it got quicker. And so, and my choice to walk through the door brings truth into the world that only I can, like sharing with you and sharing with this audience. And so the very nature of creating the door, seeing it and walking through it, I am bringing into the world the possibility for healing for everyone. And it's the same thing for you. It's the same thing for everyone. And so I don't judge. Like the more times I end up on the other side, recognize it and walk through, the more I'm bringing connection into the world. And so instead of fighting it, I just work with it. I'm not a victim to it. I get to be the author of this beautiful truth that will set hopefully others free, but I'm not attached to it. And I get to practice every day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've I told you in another conversation I've been working with Mark Divine for years. He's been my coach for years,
Yep.
and one of the big things that he coaches, preaches a lot too is it's a choice. Like when that trauma pops up and creates this explosion in your mind that then leads you to create drama or
Yep.
get mad or pissed off. Like it's 100% you. If the drama occurs, you chose to create it, so, and
But the
that's where,
important question is, did you choose consciously or subconsciously? And
yes,
that's where increasing your level of consciousness is bringing more of the dark of the subconscious into the light of the conscious. And as you elevate your consciousness, as you become more aware, you're then able to make better choices. Because when my subconscious makes a choice, unless it's in the same environment in which it learned it, it's going to be the wrong choice. And so it is a choice. And I believe the next step of accepting that, oh, this is always a choice, is how do I increase my consciousness? How do I increase my awareness? How do I bring more of what's going on in the subconscious into the conscious mind? And that's where I found my purpose. Like, it wasn't being a SEAL. Being a SEAL created the disconnection to be able to fight back for the truth. And now all I want to do is bring people the opportunity to have more awareness, to then give them more choice in the conscious realm so that they don't create safety from a subconscious perspective that keeps them from joy, fulfillment, and connection.
absolutely. And again, kind of back to the drama, like one of the things that Mark also says is that without training, without practice,
Oh, yeah.
you don't even notice. Like
Yeah.
you just get pissed because that guy cut you off. Like you're driving along and like, why would you give them that much of your energy?
And
It like
power.
maybe,
You
yeah,
give them the power, you hand them the keys.
yes. And so it's like, we've touched a lot on the, how hard it is to become a SEAL, even get to have the opportunity to become a SEAL. And then like your journey as an entrepreneur, a little bit of about my journey as an entrepreneur, but like, and just within the last couple of minutes, you've spoken about the battle on a daily basis. It's like a constant battle that requires work. Like
Yep.
you have to, like when there's drama with between me and people that I love and care about, like now I'm actively sitting there thinking like I am not going to choose to get mad. And when as they get madder and madder, now they hear me say things like, no, I didn't do anything to you. You have decided that you're going to be mad. No, and then the response often is, no, I feel this way. And I'm
That's
like,
true. Yes, that's true. It's your feeling.
yeah, and you decided to feel that way. I didn't make you feel that
No,
way.
no, it's your fault. I mean, and the ownership of your emotional state is a critical decision. Am I the owner of my emotional state wholly and completely, or are others? And you can live in either world. If you live in the world of others control my emotional state, then you're the victim to every person around you.
Yes, yes, and that goes like full circle to what we touched on earlier, and that is that in our society today, there's victims everywhere. It's like victim after victim after victim, just millions of victims running around in this
Why?
country.
So here's the question. Why would, let's call it a society, create a victim mindset? There's
The,
one reason:
well, the first thing that's coming to mind for me is dependency.
control.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't control someone that isn't a victim. You're a victim. I can control you. I can control you by what I give you. I can control by what I take away from you. I can control you by how I make you angry or make you scared. So that a society that wants to control its members will always create division and will create victimhood. And you need both. You need division to have victimhood, because if there is only one, I can't be hurt, right? But if there's two, now I can be hurt by you. And so that's why I checked out of popular culture, society. I don't listen to any of it because it is always a narrative of disconnection to create victims so that there's control. Nah, not me. I not You're not getting me.
yeah. So that reminds me of something that Tony Robbins recently said. and it he's got like these pillars of like the basically they're the ingredients to life, and one of the ingredients is certainty, and another one is uncertainty, and and they're required. Like he has like I don't know 5 or 6 of these ingredients that are required, and it was interesting when he said that certainty and uncertainty are required because most people will naturally say, I don't like uncertainty. Like we're programmed, like as a
It gives
species,
us a perceived loss of control, which then creates a physiological result that will produce trauma.
right? And his argument is that without uncertainty, at least some uncertainty, then life would be boring.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting to talk to guys like yourself and hear things like that from Tony because if we're naturally programmed to not like to avoid uncertainty. Like, and I think I might have seen you mention that in another podcast or something like that. It's like you, as far as uncertainty goes, a human, the subconscious is like there to protect you, or the subconscious believes,
From uncertainty.
yes,
Yep.
yes. So, but you need it. Right?
Yep.
So then it's like, okay, how do I find this magic balance? And that kind of goes back to what we've been touching on. It's like,
Awareness and consciousness. What do I have influence over? What don't I have influence over? Not being attached to false futures, not using disconnection as a means from safety, right? Those are the solutions.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we're it's amazing. The time's flown by. I had a bunch of other questions, but I think the conversation's been great. I do think though that we should probably close with a question that would hopefully kind of bring it all together, right? Because we've we've touched on a lot of things. You and I have a lot of practice. Like I've been working on this for years, like getting to that point that my point that was just like your point at the
Yep.
convenience store and the airport. Like I had that point within the last few weeks, ironically, or months. It's like been probably within the last 50
Yep.
days or so. I had that point. My life is changing, but I'm not out of the woods yet. Like
No. Still
and
on the other side of the door. You're starting to see it, that there is one. And maybe
yes,
like put a toe over every now and again.
yeah, yeah. But you have to like I've learned quickly like you can't then just assume that everything's gonna be okay.
Nope, it's work.
Yes,
That's why it's not a bridge that I walk across once.
it's a door you're going back and forth.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's actually the point. Like that is the point. It's not like it's a bad thing. And if you put judgment towards it, then you get locked on the other side.
Right. Yeah. So then the question for you, since you've got a ton of experience helping people with stuff like this, is if you're listening, if you're someone listening to this podcast right now that's struggling with addiction or they can't make payroll or you name it,
Or they think they can't make payroll. Like, we always made it, but we made sure that it was risky and full of anxiety.
yeah, yeah. So the question for someone who doesn't, I mean, I've read over 400 books at this point that involve self-help or
Yep.
learning about successful people. You've got thousands and thousands of hours of experience, not only learning but helping others. So what would you recommend for those who are really struggling as a first step um, to head down the right path? You know, it's as we've been discussing, it's a lot of work. It's going to take years. It's kind of like meditation. You know, for me at least, I had to meditate for a long, long time to really get to the point where I like have consistent benefits.
Yep.
It's like I'm addicted to it now. But yeah, what would you recommend as maybe not just the first step, but just kind of a simple beginner's playbook for people that are looking for help?
Like I can give the a general formula, right? Like, and unfortunately, what I've what I struggle with this or is, and well, I'll cut to the chase. Um, we now have established clearly that traumas are merely outdated strategies of survival that live in our subconscious, right? We've said that enough times. Like if people just leave being able to say that, that's a huge step forward because you're now living in the truth of what's running you. So, you know, traumas are subconscious strategies that are outdated and they're all focused on survival that our current environment no longer needs. Within that place, one of the important questions is there commonality between all those strategies? Because when you look at humans have very creative ways of living in their traumas, right? It's almost infinite. And in working with thousands and producing significant data that I then regressed, I was able to see that there are patterns in it. So regardless of how many uh, the way I always describe it, pictures of trauma we draw, and those pictures are the pictures of suffering in our life, right? We all draw a different picture to create suffering in our life or a lack of fulfillment or a lack of safety. But we all have the same 6 crayons, right? There's only a few colors we can color with. Like you color a beach scene, I color a city scene, but we still just use the same crayons. You and we both really like the red crayon and the blue crayon, and someone else might really like the yellow and the green. Now, at another show we'll do together, we can talk through those things and how they manifest in people's lives. That would be like volume 2. But right now, is there any commonality between all those crayons? Like as a fundamental piece, and there is. And the commonality between all of them is every strategy of any human that I've ever worked with, and we're talking thousands of strategies, they all create disconnection. They're all strategies of disconnection because when we create distance, we create perceived safety. Right? Even if I don't want to be distant from you, if I create distance, look, I created it, so I control something. And there's now barricade. There's now space between us. We can create that distance from ourselves, our truth. We can create that distance from another, or we can create distance from the world, the universe, God, all that's greater than us. So when I go to like, what would be the first step? If we now understand that even though every person listening has drawn a different picture, we now know they use the same crayons, but we know that all of their pictures are pictures of disconnection. So what do I do about that? You need help. We can't do this alone. You cannot heal alone. It's impossible because the mechanism of healing was isolation, or trauma was isolation. So you got to work with other people. The way you can work with other people on this is you can talk to people around you. Hey, I now have learned that trauma is an outdated strategy of survival. It lives in my subconscious, so I'm not aware of it. And every strategy of survival produces disconnection in my world. What behaviors do you see where I create disconnection or distance from my truth, from others, from the world, all that's greater than me? And people are going to have answers. And that's where you start to get insights into what you might be doing to keep yourself on the other side of the door, keep yourself a victim, keep yourself stuck. How's that?
I love it. Yeah, it's great. And just so people know, and to ensure I understood it correctly, the disconnection could be a substance, it could be a thought process, it could be a
Belief,
routine.
I'm fundamentally flawed, right? That's separation from self. That's not true, right? It can be, they generally manifest in the way you see something wrong, and then they show up in our behaviors. And so the behaviors of a substance, the behaviors of gambling or bad habits, the behaviors of always thinking someone's going to leave you, or the behavior of always thinking someone's going to lie to me, someone's going to cheat and steal from me. Those are the manifestations of these strategies. And so being able to get those insights into what are my flavors of that? How do I try to create distance? You're right on it.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, yeah, I can't really think of a better way to end it than that. I mean, it's
I can think
again,
of one more thing. There's a shortcut. This is where I pitch what I do. There's a shortcut. Like, you can try figuring this shit out yourself, and you can with the help of your community. Like, you can't do it alone. None of you can do it alone. But if you have people that love you and that you love, yes, you can make progress. Or let me make it quicker for you, right? Like, there are maps. It is just guidance, and I'm on the same journey. I'm not a guru. I haven't healed. I'm not fixed. I've just I've just figured out how to explain it enough, right? To shortcut the path of bringing stuff from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind. So that's my pitch to say, if you don't want to struggle on your own, try and figure this out. I'm there for you because it allows me to live my purpose.
yeah. So with that being said, what if listeners or viewers want to get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
I think two things. One of the things we connected on is, we get to turn around right now and you get to be on my podcast. So I'm in the process of launching what we call Capital T Truth. And so soon that's going to be available, probably by the time this launches. So that's capitalttruth.org. And then my company in which I do this work is called True Path Mastery. And that's TRU Path Mastery. There you can go and get insights into what we do, how we help people, that type of stuff. That's also where either place is where they can get in touch with me.
Perfect. Yeah, and I recommend. I've been to your website, the True Path website. It's really cool. You can see Larry's got a great team of people with a lot of experience. If I remember correctly, you focus on hiring people who have been through your programs in many
Yep.
cases.
I
So
won't partner with someone or work with someone that isn't on the path of doing this work, because say you and I partner in a business and I'm working towards truth and you're working towards maintaining your untruths, it's just going to be a constant fight and I can't support you. But when we both have insights into our strategies, right? You can support me, I can support you.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And that's I know people right now who are looking for counselors or psychiatrists or psychologists, and they're like, I can't even find someone that I mesh with,
Yeah.
So and I've also learned over the years that a lot of people who are psychiatrists or psychologists or counselors, they got a degree in psychology or sociology because they were trying to figure themselves out, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that on the
Uh,
one hand. On the other hand, if they're still really lost and they're
oh, you
trying,
can have coaches and therapy. I've had coaches and therapists that coach or provide me advice from their untruth, right? From
yes,
their own subconscious loop. And they're really talking to themselves, not me. And so that's where I always try to be careful with that, because it is, and part of my hardest job or the hardest part of my job when it comes to working with others, keeping my subconscious under wraps, right? Like, I always talk about it as my job is to conduct brain surgery on you while you try to fight me because you don't want me to, and my subconscious tries to tell me what to do. And so it's like I got that in a head, like I'm having a fist fight with you, and I'm trying to cut out this little cancer of these outdated strategies in your mind. And so it is a constant practice of maintaining the awareness of where are my issues coming into the conversation.
wow, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's been an excellent conversation, and you mentioned a volume two. I'd love to do that. It's as we've touched on in this conversation and other conversations we've had. It's we're here to help people.
Yep.
Your purpose is a lot more laser focused than ours is here at No Surrender. We've got a very diverse group of guests. Ironically, two have been SEALs so far, and we haven't had
You
a lot.
you got to be doing something right. Like, most podcasters would give their left leg to have one seal, and much less two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I might give you a third so you can get a hat trick. I got a guy, one of my best friends from the teams that I think you would very much enjoy, and he covers a whole different area of life. So I figure you got to get the hat trick in on this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you know Goggins and Jocko, there's Sean
Yep.
Ryan, like a lot of you guys are helping a lot of people, and that's awesome, especially when considering what you've already done, to put your lives on the line to keep our country as safe as possible, so there's
It's fighting
obviously,
for freedom, just in a different way.
yeah, yeah. And when considering everything, I know I like we could we're gonna have to do this second episode, but and I'm
Okay.
sure we could just keep going here, but like another thing that parallels to the story, that the 10-year story that you told about the
Yep.
airport convenience store, and my story of right around here at the 10-year mark, where I've gone to on the other side of the doorway, or the door, however you want to say it, is that I launched this podcast in that state that you just described, or that you have described, and that I agreed with, like, and more specifically, like, it's a constant battle to make sure we have a big payroll. Like, we're not talking about a $5,000 payroll here. We're talking about a multiple of that, and not just a 2x or 3x or 4x
Yeah.
multiple of that. So when and this is, I guess, a little bit of advice that I can throw out there for anyone who's listening or watching. And another thing that Tony Robbins has said recently is life is about, I think it was more specifically, the value you build in life is based on what you give, right? So the more you give to help others, the more you will receive,
Yeah.
So we launched this podcast at like one of the worst possible times for my wife and I. She's got her own podcast and her own business, and she's super busy. I'm hopefully at the tail end of getting my businesses restructured here, and so when it matters most, like when the shit hits the fan, I always say that's where you find out. That's where you separate the men from the boys. Like when the bomb goes off. I know I'm speaking figuratively, and
Yeah.
you've been there when it literally
That's no
happened.
different. It is, that is very true. Well, and I would even say when the bomb goes off, you have to find out who's more screwed up than the others, right? Because the bomb went off and I started giggling, and I should have been hiding.
Yeah, yeah, and that's and 9 out of every 10 people will tell you they're gonna run out of ammo with you and throw their weapon and go fist,
Not true.
no, no. It's not only is it not true, there is a large percentage, and this is gonna sound negative, and maybe it's related to trauma I've had.
We'll
And
see.
there are a lot of people who enjoy seeing others fail, and they will tell you that they will fight with you, and then intentionally not only not fight with you, they will turn against you in the hopes to see you fail.
So I go back to the only reason those people are around you, right? Specifically, is you need them there.
So yeah,
Your subconscious needs them there. I don't have any of those people anymore. I used to. My first three businesses, embezzled, stole, cheated, lied. Not since I've been healthy. Like those people won't want to be around me anymore. Too bright. So that to me is a big testament to our health, right? You ensure, and when I say you, not your conscious mind, right? You as a whole, your subconscious mind needs that person to be here, just like I needed to be 2 weeks from being broke. And so, yeah, that's where it's like, oh, okay, I got to work harder on getting on the other side of the door. Because on the other side of the door, those people don't stick around.
yeah, and the awesome thing, it's we were obviously meant to have this conversation today, whether it was on a podcast or not. The awesome thing about that is that, like, I'm down. I went from having a full team of people like
Yeah.
that just alternated, hundreds of
Yeah.
people over the years, to now I've got one person that might, out of our whole team, I have one person that might fall into that category, but we have so much positivity around now that there's a
They're
chance.
going to self select out, or they're going to change. They're going to come to the light, or they're going to want to be dark. And what that is a testament to your healing. That is it, because we're only going to allow the people around us that are in alignment with our level of consciousness. So as our level of consciousness goes up, the level of consciousness of the people that want to be around us goes up. And then we are closer to love and selfless love, right? Unconditional love. When we live in fear and anxiety and guilt and shame and all those low frequency things, someone who is very light at a high level doesn't want to be around that frequency. But the other people that do, they will. It's just the nature of our nervous systems. And so to me, I would take that as a good sign of the work that you're doing. Like that's proof that you're doing the right stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you've seen our logo yet or not, because the podcast is young, but the no is red and surrender is white. And the reason surrender is white is for the light, and
Yeah.
it goes hand in hand with what you just said. Like they're either going to see this last individual is either going to see the light
And
and
walk
do right.
towards it, or they're going to think it's the worst thing in the world, and they will tell everyone how it's bad
Oh yeah.
so they can
Yeah,
live in the dark. That who the hell cares? Like, have fun over there in the dark. No
exactly.
judgment. But guess what? This light's always going to be around if you want to come back.
Yeah, yeah. If you find your own light, then you're welcome to come back to the light.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, yeah, again, I really, really appreciate it. And we'll definitely have to do volume 2. And
okay.
yeah,
We'll
yeah.
get you your hat trick. You'll be set.
Perfect, perfect. All right. Well, thanks again.
My pleasure. It was a great time.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Bye-bye.